Hey, everybody, welcome to River City-Media's Beyond the Booth. Hope everybody's staying cool during this warm weather we got coming on right now. So, just sit back and relax and enjoy the show. How we channel on with Phil Harrison. Our special guest tonight is Speaker of the House, Nathaniel Ledbetter. Mr. Speaker, thanks for joining us. And, I guess the main topic that's kind of going around the state of Alabama right now is the AHSAA reclassification split between the public and private schools. And I guess first question is your thoughts on this.
Well, certainly, as a fan, I've watched it. Of course, I don't have anything to do with that. They've got a central board. I think it does all that makeup. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where there's been a lot of talk about it for a number of years. States around us have already done it. Tennessee's had it for many, many years, and Georgia did it last year. It seems like the more and more private schools there is, it seems like it becomes more and more of an issue. I know when Phil and I played, we didn't have any private schools, so it wasn't an issue then. And for the county that I live in, there's been a lot of state championships won by private schools, none of them which are in this county. And so, I don't have a problem with the split. And I've seen the tape, I guess, where the director said it's really not a split. We're just playing separate playoffs, and they can still play interlocking schedules during the year and during the season. And so I hope some of that happens. I don't know why it wouldn't. I probably am not as familiar with it as some people. Have I got an opinion? Yeah, I do. I believe it was a decision that had been talked about for many, many years. And kind of like before we come on, Phil had mentioned this is probably something that's been in works for a long time. And I don't disagree with that. It was a 13-2 vote. There was a reason for that. So anyway, we'll see how it plays out. It's there for 2 years. And I know what I've seen, a lot of teams have got their schedules made out now since they know what region they're in. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Speaker, when you and Phil played, y'all didn't have face mask or grass on the field. So, there's a lot of things that's changed since then.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far back. That's maybe not hardly that far back, but anyway.
Yeah, the reclassification and the losing of a classification 6A back to the way it used to be, and going to the private stuff. Mm-hmm. I'll be the first to admit I like it. I'm glad that they finally done it. Does it make it more fair? I feel like it will. But then again, I also look at it, seeing that some of the regions that some of the DeKalb County schools are in, they are playing schools that are got several hundred more kids probably than what they've got. So it kind of, it's kind of back and forth in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you got to bear in mind that's always happened.
Right.
I mean, if you look at an example would be last year, say 7A, Hazel, I think it's Hazel Green. I'd looked at those numbers, had like 1,080 kids, and Auburn had 2,200. So that's not different than what it's always been. And I think they classify them from the 9th grade through the 12th. So
yes,
that's where they get to count at. And so I do think, I wish there was a way that didn't have as much discrepancy. One of the things that we all get used to and forget, we live in a great state, but we also live in a rural state. And there is a lot of travel that goes with that in high school athletics sometimes. I know we were no exception to that rule last year. With our grandkids, we were all over North Alabama from one side or the other. So, I mean, I get that. That's a disadvantage. One thing I think it hurts. It hurts with gate. It hurts with concessions. But I can't imagine trying to separate those regions. That's got to be a daunting task. Right. And there's somebody that's not going to be happy, and somebody may not be as square as the rest of them as far as they feel like they were treated. And I get that. Do I think that playing a private and public championship is the route to go? I support that. I do think it gives more kids opportunities to be successful. The only thing I can't. There's nothing perfect. I mean, let's face it. There's no way that they could have got it perfect. What I would like to have seen, though, I would like to have seen another classification in private schools for the smaller schools. But again, if you go back to that, you're probably looking at a lot more travel. I'm sure they looked at everything that they could and tried to come up with the best solution that they possibly could have. And I think one thing is there is an independent school association, and some people may not be aware of that. I think there's about 30 teams in it. Now they all don't play 11-man football. Some of them play 7-man football, I think. But if they had some more teams like that in it, the travel might if they could join forces with them underneath the umbrella of the High School Athletic Association, that might would help out too. I mean, I'm just like you guys. All I'm doing is just talking off the top of my head because I don't know exactly how they come to the conclusion of this, but I'm not going. I'm going to be straight up. I like it. I mean, I think it's something that should have been done years ago. And for me being a public school guy, I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Hey, to piggyback off a couple of things, I think now in the classifications, I think they grade kind of like the top 2 classes now. It's not 9 through 12 anymore. I think they changed that rule. And the ones you was talking about, and talking about 1, 2, and I wanted to point this one out before we go into other stuff since we're talking about the split right now. One of the schools that I know is not happy is Douglas High School.
Mm-hmm.
They're a 5A school. Their region they were in, now Albertville's in the region we're in. Our Arab, Scottsboro, Fort Payne. Well, Douglas gets sent to the region that has Central Clay in it, St. Clair County. So they're one of the ones that took a beating in this. And if they're upset, I can understand that, because that one, for the most part, I think everything else has come up fair. Cherokee County is going to have a lot of travel in the 4A region they're in. But, I think everything else kind of squished down pretty good. But I think Douglas kind of took a beating on this.
Yeah, I've seen that. And I agree with you. I think Douglas, I wish that could somehow work itself out. When you said that, Phil, it made me think of Crossville. Mm-hmm. And because of their population, they were in 7A when they probably only got enough kids playing for 2A. Mm-hmm. But they wound up being put in the same situation that Douglas was in. And that was happened several years ago. Of course, it wound up hurting their program tremendously. And I hope that doesn't happen to Douglas. But I will say, looking at what I've seen in the media, I feel pretty good for Crossville because they're not in the higher classification now. And I think they've got some games they can win. They're going back to a varsity schedule, I think, next year. And I've seen it just this week. They've got their full 10-game schedule made out. I think there's 3 or 4 games on that schedule that they'd have to be favored in. So, for them, it was good. If you look at Albertville, I looked at Albertville. I looked at people around us. I think Albertville will come out pretty good on it. They were in the 7A. They're not in the highest classification anymore. I do wish that Douglas was somehow in that region, Phil. But, it's unfortunate. It really is. And I feel for Douglas. And I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's too late. I don't know if there's anything they can do. But anyway, I think for the most part across North Alabama, and I'm not as familiar with the South Alabama teams, but across North Alabama, it probably made tighter regions for some people.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else you want to add, Howie?
No, go ahead, Phil. Take it away.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into the part that kind of sort of we want to touch on, and I want you to explain. Number one is for folks that don't understand, because I know there's a lot of people that speculate on a lot of these things. Explain the Choose Act and what the problem come in with the Athletic Association, and that ended up being in court.
Yeah, so the Choose Act was passed to hope that, especially the first 3 years, I guess, it changes after this year, but it gave it's 300% of poverty level, gave them opportunity to use $7,000 to go to the school of their choice. Now, some of it wasn't private school. There were some public schools. There are public schools that have tuitions. And we've got some around us. If you live outside the city limits and you want to go to that school, you got to pay a tuition. So some of those kids, quite a few of them actually did that. And the Choose Act allowed kids that was maybe in inner cities that wanted to change or maybe in a tough situation, it let the money follow the child. And that's no different than what it does in public school. It follows the kid based on percentage or number of kids. So the Choose Act, the money actually just follows the kids, and you hear all kind of dialogue about it, rightfully so. There should be dialogue, but I think it's healthy when that happens. But everybody says, well, that's private school money. Well, or public school money. I've heard that. Well, that's public school money. No, it's taxpayers' money. That's what it is. And, the thing about it is we put more money in public education today than we've ever put in it. This budget that we will pass this year will be the largest education budget for public education that Alabama has ever had in the history of this state. And our numbers are really starting to gain ground. I mean, we've moved up more than anybody else in the country in math and arithmetic. Arithmetic and reading. And so our education systems are really growing and doing a good job. And I think the Choose Act gives kids the ability to make a choice on where they want to go. And what happened was actually the amendment that was added was my amendment. Now, as Speaker, I don't carry bills. I don't do much. I mean, I have bills that I want to see get passed. I usually give them to somebody else, but I'd asked my staff to draft up the amendment. And what it did was it mirrored what they do in public school, because I didn't want to use it to recruit, which actually said if they come into the school system and don't make a bona fide move, they've got to sit out a year, just like they do now. Nothing changed. And so, and now they've changed the ruling, 8th grade and under, you can move anywhere you want to, when you want to. So that was it. It mirrored what they were doing in public school. But according to what the Athletic Association, they said, well, that's financial aid. And if they take financial aid, they're not eligible to play. Well, that wasn't the case, because if it was the case, the kids that transfer from, whether it's from one school to the other in DeKalb County, being it from Crossville to Ider, if they moved, then you would have to call that kid ineligible if you went by that ruling. But that's not how they do it if you make a bona fide move. So it actually mirrored exactly what they did. And to be fair, Heath Harmon was not the director at that time. Somebody else was. And actually, the language come from them. So that was kind of why we didn't want kids to be punished because they had taken advantage of the Choose Act.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And that's what caused a lot of this court issue. But then, of course, moving on to the Senate Bill 73, where now a legislature gets to pick part of the central board. And, of course, the Athletic Association don't like that type of. Explain how that works, for people that don't know. And then we'll go down the rabbit hole a little bit more, because I've got some questions surrounding that. But what is the purpose of that, Nathaniel?
I think the purpose of it was that it seems like that the central board is in a bubble of what they do and who they deal with within their own circle. And I think there was conversation around that. I don't, to be honest, we feel I'll be surprised if that bill passes. I just think that even though, we were with the governor and filed a suit on the Choose Act, I don't think us as elected officials needs to be running the High School Athletic Association. So that's my opinion. I don't think it'll pass. And, as Speaker, we can certainly keep it off the House floor, and it's got to go through both chambers. Was it something maybe that helped? I mean, I knew that going into this thing after we had the issue with the Choose Act and the ruling that they had made, because the night before we had actually talked with the central board, the president and the director and their attorneys. We thought it was worked out. And then when the central board met, they voted against it. So I think a lot of the bills that you see probably come out of just frustration of the members, but not really getting any kind of ability to talk and have conversation with High School Athletic Association. I do think that was part of it. I have talked to Heath Harmon, who is the director, and he's asked us to put some House and Senate members together to look over bills and see what's possible and what's not. And I've agreed to do that. So we'll go after probably next week. We've already got the committee members assigned, and so we'll probably after that let them sit down and talk about those bills. But that bill has been put on hold, and I doubt if it'll ever come out of committee.
Yeah, because my thinking is most people are going to say, well, they're going to make this political. They're trying to take over the Athletic Association. I think kind of what everybody and you'll have a concern about is making it fair for everyone, because at the end of the line, it's about the student athletes. It's about these kids that play football. The politics and all, need to take a back seat to that. And one thing I saw, and you can address this, and it's one thing that I saw that has been a problem. When you have an eligibility issue, especially with a single student athlete, a lot of times the school represents the student athlete, and they go into the star room or wherever it is, and they decide what it is they're going to do. And the student athlete don't really get a due process to kind of plead their case. And in some cases, that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with that, and that has been some conversation. I think you will see some changes. This is what, of course, when we were in the lawsuit, I couldn't talk to Heath. I mean, my attorney wouldn't let me talk to him. His attorney had called and just didn't work out. Once we went to mediation, we had a chance to have a conversation, and they, the board fixed it. The High School Athletic Association board fixed that. But, there was a lot of discrepancies. I mean, there really was. And that is one of them. I mean, there's some talk about maybe regionally having a region board set up where that they would listen to those gripes or those problems like that within that region, which I don't think that's a bad idea. The one thing we got to bear in mind, I think a lot of people have forgotten about this, but I told Heath this, and I said, you're in a different situation than any Alabama high school athletic director has ever been in. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, when Savarese or, back through the years when other people was the directors, they had private schools and they had public schools. That's pretty much it. Years ago, we just had public schools and a few private schools. Now they got charter schools, they got school choice, they got private school, public school, they got magnet schools. I mean, it's totally different than what it used to be. And I think that's something that the association has got to realize, that we do not live in the 70s and 80s anymore, and we've got to adjust to the 21st century, to where we're at today. I do think that is an issue. And Phil, you bring up a great point. I think that's one of those things that could be done. It would be positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely do. And like you're saying, I agree with you on maybe having a smaller board that, regional, Northeast, Southwest, because you've got people that are in here that are kind of sort of impartial, part of the political game, but also add some insight to the athletic association of what's going on in their area. Because you can hear a lot of the talk instead of it seems like the athletic association has to kind of blanket everything.
Well, and I will say this, I do believe this, and people may disagree with me, and that's fine. They got their opinion and I got mine. But I think the public sentiment, the general public that's got kids that play or grandkids or grandparents, I think they like this. I mean, I seen a poll on AL.com where they just did a general poll, didn't ask a sway question one way or the other, and 82% agreed that it should be public and private. So, and I'm one of those 82%. But I do think that there is a way to do it, and I can't fault them for trying to go in a direction that the general public really sounds like they want to go in. And their member schools, which, like we said earlier, and I think this needs to be, at least for the listeners you've got, needs to be understood. There's 460 public schools. There's only 58 private schools that participate. And all those don't participate in football or basketball. Some of them's different sports. So, yeah, I mean, let's see how it goes. Let's give it a chance. I mean, that's what I say. You got 2 years. If it doesn't work out, you can always change it and go back to something else. But I do think it deserves a chance.
Yeah, I understand. And you look around, and like I've always said, there's way too many 54-6 games, and we've got to do something about that. And I think having this public-private school split, of course, now you don't have competitive balance, and some folks was making an issue of that. But I don't think we need it. I think when you have public schools playing public schools, they are going to work themselves out. Yeah, right now you're still going to have those games, but I think over time, like right now, it's hard for a 1A school to step up and play a 2A school. Well, now everything's kind of squished together, and I think we're going to naturally have over time more competitive balance.
Well, I do too. I think the point that you made is correct. I think the things that we've seen, and not only that. I mean, listen, I just to be upfront with you, a lot of what I talk about and see is what I've seen personally, right? I mean, my grandkids played on a team that had to go to Huntsville 4 times this year. We don't have any business being in Huntsville. We got 8 teams in this county. We got no business being in Huntsville. And then when they come over here, one game last year, we counted 60 people on the other side. You can't pay the light bill like that. You can't pay the referees. I mean, they don't travel. At least local schools travel. When we talk about the classification, they went from 7 to 6. Well, crap, when I played, we had 4 classifications. I mean, it was not easy, but it was just 4 classifications, and that was every school. It wasn't public, private. That was every school that participated in athletics was in one of those 4 classifications. So this is not the end of the world for those that is not happy with it. But I think it does give us an opportunity that we hadn't had in years to see if there's a different platform that may be more positive. And maybe, like you said, those games that's 56-0 at halftime won't happen as much.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. And and to piggyback off what you're talking about, I remember I was talking to a fellow from Sylvania that when they went to Madison Academy to play, Sylvania had twice as many fans as Madison Academy had. And Madison Academy was, they were the one everybody was looking up to. And, and schools like Plainview depend on gate. And when you're playing St. John Paul, that hurts you at the gate. You're just depending on your local people. You need the visitors too. Just like when Plainview travels to St. John Paul, they're most of the gate. So, we need that to balance out also to help, help financially, because dadgum, it costs a bunch to clothe these kids now. It costs so much money. So we need every dime we can get. And I would much rather see an Eider play Fife, because even if Eider's struggling, they're still going to bring a big crowd to Fife. So that's the kind of atmosphere you want to see.
And of course, like you said, it was leather helmets and no face masks. But I remember when I played, when all the county teams played each other, there was not a Friday night that you could go to a football game that wasn't standing room only. I remember us playing Geraldine, and you couldn't. It was 4 deep. Or if we played Fife, it would be like that. I mean, it was every week. It wasn't once every now and then. And I just think there has been some of that excitement of rural teams playing each other that's been lost because of it. And maybe this will bring some of it back. I mean, it has for some of the county teams, because some of them's going to get to play each other now that hadn't in the last few years. So, I think it's a good thing. Let's see. Let's give it a chance, man. Let's just give it a shot.
Yeah, and just a story about that. I wrote a little story on RiverCity-Media about Bellyhead and Sandrock used to be fierce rivals, especially when they were in the same area together, especially when Jim Kirby and Russell Jakeway was going at each other. Well, they stopped playing in 1999. They haven't played in 26 years. Well, this year, that series is going to be renewed. And that's all awesome, because of all this happening. So I think that's a good thing, because you're going to have a great gate there, because the history, of these two programs playing each other.
That's awesome. I don't know about y'all, Phil. I hope there's not anybody from Sandrock listening. But we always felt like we were 14 points down when we got off the bus up there. So did y'all have that same way? Did y'all feel that way too?
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of plead the fifth, but
you
Coach
can't.
Kirby used to tell us.
Yeah,
Coach Kirby used to tell us. Now, when we go over there, we're going to be down 7-0 before the game ever starts, so no excuses. And he would just kind of sort of say that. Of course, the better team's going to win, and I understand what you're saying, but it's kind of sort of fun to poke fun about and joke about.
Coach Jakeway had a way with folks. So I'll just tell you, he is a dang good football coach, and they had some great teams. Well, I think he won the state championship 2 years out of
state runner up one time too. He's one of those coaches I really enjoyed he was one of them that coached special teams before it became popular to coach special teams, and he won a lot of football games that way.
He did the special teams. And if you remember too, Phil, he's one of the first ones that started throwing it around everywhere too.
Mm-hmm.
He got to where he was throwing it around a lot more than a lot of the smaller teams was doing. Probably one of the first ones to do that.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did. He hit quarterbacks to work with. He just so happened he had them come through at perfect times, and they were really good. Well, getting back to what we were talking about, and we've talked about football, in the public-private school split, and I think competitive balance kind of sort of evened out football a lot. It worked in that, but it was the other sports that was the problem most of the time.
Yeah.
That was the other sports where you really run into issues with that, I believe. And I think this system is going to work better. Now, I hope over time public and private schools don't stop playing each other, because that's the way it goes in Tennessee. Like this year, Fife's going to play Westbrook. So I hope those kind of traditional rivalries stay with the private schools and the public schools, because you don't want the private schools to be isolated. You want some of the public schools to be able to compete with them.
But I will say this, I know that Coach Pruitt called a couple of private schools, and they've not agreed to play. So they can't say that the public schools won't play the private schools when the private schools doesn't accept the offer. I do think some of that will happen. And I'm glad Westbrook accepted Fife's offer. I think that's good for both of them, to be honest with you. So I do think that's something that will happen. It's already happened here. I know that. But, we'll see. We'll kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, because in Steve Smith's case at Westbrook, they're going to have scheduling problems. I'm afraid they're probably going to have to go across state line at times to play somebody like a Gordon Lee or a Boyd Buchanan or Notre Dame out of Chattanooga, to keep from having to have those long travel trips. They played last year over in Georgia at Trine. So, hopefully, the scheduling is going to work out where these schools don't have to travel so much.
Well, I hope so. I think that if I had anything to say that any way or another, is that would be my biggest concern. But if you see some of these private schools taken up, and I just seen a message come across that Pisgah's playing Randolph, I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's enough private schools now in North Alabama, and the good thing about it, I will say this: Plainview now, what I've seen, has got a 7-team region instead of an 8-team region. So that gives them one more week that they can pick up a private school. So my thing is, if they make a call, I wish they would accept it instead of saying no. But I can't. You got to try to do what's best for your team. But they don't need to complain about not playing local teams and not being willing to do it. I guess that would be my thing.
Yeah.
Phil, before you go any further, let's back up to the SB 73. We got a question from Paige Darwin. In SB 73, why does it only address K through 12 public schools being part of an athletic association? Half the board would be appointed. Why does it not also include private schools in an athletic association?
Mm-hmm. Well, it could. If it was, if SB 73 was to pass, and you're going to double the number of board members. The speaker gets 4 choices, the pro tem gets 4, and the governor gets 3, I think, or something like that. But anyway, it would. They could pick whoever they wanted to. It wouldn't have to be a private school. I know that's one of the complaints, that there's only one private school guy on the central board, and I think the central board is a makeup of 15 members. There's more board members than that, but the central board, the one is 15. I would say if it's whatever the percentages is of public schools, that's what the percentage needs to be on the board. That seems fair to me. But bearing in mind, somebody told me last year that I guess the number I seen in one sport, and I don't remember what sport, it might have been football. I can't remember what it was now, but there was just 33% of the state championships were private schools, which is not a huge percentage, but private schools just makes up 7% of the total number of teams. So if you look at it like that, that's a lot. When they're not making up but 7%, but you're winning 33% of championships. And I like Phil said, I've seen it more in softball and basketball, girls in particular, because I can tell you straight up that Plainview has lost state championships to private schools. Basketball last year. So yeah, it happens. It's happened multiple times here, and I'm sure it has across all the counties.
Well, Nathaniel, I'm wondering about if this does pass and you have, say, select 4 board members that will go in. Would that kind of be from like administrative type people, education people, maybe coaches? How would you kind of sort of weigh that and put people on the board that you would select?
I was thinking about putting you on the board, Phil.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if that should be a great idea or not.
Mr. Speaker, that's the first time I've ever seen Phil speechless there for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think I get 4 appointments. I put you and Harry both on there. What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's go. Yeah. We're ready.
No, I like I said, I don't think the bill's going to pass. I don't. But I think it was just from my standpoint, this is what I think, and I'm not just saying it. Being in my position, you get to hear a lot of people talk about a lot of things, and this has been a lot of conversation over the past several months because of the Choose Act and the lawsuit. And what I would say is, I think there needs to be probably more people that has served both as administrator and as a coach, because I think it widens your view a little bit when you see it on both sides. Mm-hmm. A perfect example to me, of course, we've got a board member that's on the central board right here in DeKalb County, and that's Brian Jett. I think he does a great job with it. But he's been a coach. He was a basketball coach. Now he's an administrator. I think he's got a lot wider lens. And I'm not saying that the others don't do. They do a great job, make great decisions based on what their knowledge is. But I do think that would give men and women that served on that board, if they had some administration, it would give them a larger lens to look through. And then, of course, there's you, Phil.
Yeah. Well, and I understand what you're saying. What it turns out to be probably is a popularity contest, who's who, rather than like with Brian Jett, who's going to be partial because he's been out in the field. He knows what it's about. He knows how to put his personal differences, his personal thoughts aside to be what's best for everybody involved.
Well,
being an administrator automatically puts you in that position.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my youngest son. I mean, he's a head coach in football and baseball, and now he's an administrator. So I do think he now looks at the financial side, where when he was coaching, he didn't have to as much. He looked for his, whatever it was, if it was baseball or football, he looked for that financial side, but now he has to look for the financial side for the whole school. So it does matter. And, if I had a concern, that would be some of my concerns about some of the travel, is that, someone's going to have to travel further and it's going to be harder financially. And, we've changed some of the funding. Last year we passed a program called the RAISE Act, and maybe that helps with some of the funding. But I do think that's something that probably wouldn't hurt to look at. And, the fact of the matter is, and we alluded to it earlier, when we're having to travel, or we're getting teams travel from Huntsville, the city of Huntsville, when they bring 60 people, we can't pay for the referees. So, I mean, it does matter.
Definitely. I understand. So, in other words, to kind of sort of sum up what we've been talking about is really the state government, legislature, or whatever, doesn't really want to take over and tell the athletic association what to do, but we need some compromise in that it's fair for everyone, and the student athlete is the one that benefits at the end.
Yeah. Well, I can't say the state government. I'm saying I, as a speaker. I mean, I'm just one of 140, but but I don't think that's one thing I don't think we need to be involved in. I mean, let's face it. If we were going to get involved in it, the thing we could do is just turn it over to the Department of Education.
Yeah.
And just say, Dr. Mackey, here it is. I mean, because we've already got everything in place. You see what I'm saying? We got 460 teams already. They all already got the uniforms. It was paid for the most part by taxpayer dollars. They got lights and football fields that was paid for by state taxpayer dollars. So if we were going to blow it up or just do away with the High School Athletic Association, all we do is make a call to Dr. Mack and say, guess what? Congratulations. Start working on this. That's not my intent. And that's not what I want to do. And I think for the most part, that's not what all the legislature wants to do. But I think what we do want to do, if we got a question to the High School Athletic Association, that they at least give us enough street cred to give us an answer. Because like I said, all the things I just mentioned is funded by state money. And they're using the facilities that the state's paying for. But not only that, but the retirement system is also through the state. So they can say they're an independent organization all they want to. But if they were to stop today, they couldn't go out and build all those facilities, put up all those lights, and start a new program. I mean, it's not financially feasible. So I think the biggest thing that the legislative body wants is, if we got a question, just give us the time of day. And, the petty things that, how come my kid don't get to play or stuff like that, that's not it. But when you don't let kids play because you don't agree with a law that was passed when it is a law, that's wrong. And that's what happened. The governor's got a bill with the High School Athletic Association that pretty much just says, if you disobey the law, you will be penalized. Now, that bill may pass. She's talked to me about it. We'll see. And it was just, when you make a statute or make one that is state law and then they don't abide by it, but you don't have no repercussions. And that's kind of what happened in this instance.
So everything basically is a work in progress. Everything ain't written in stone. It's not really anything for everybody to get upset about. It's a work in progress, and hopefully it's going to work out for the good in the long run when everybody sits down face to face and we get compromised and, get out of the fighting part of it and get down to business and do what's right.
Yeah. Well, I can say one thing. It certainly didn't take coaches long that I've seen around here to start making out your schedules. I mean, because a large number of them's got 10 games. And, I'd seen somebody posted today, I don't know, it was Limestone. I forgot where it was. West Morgan, I guess. I guess that was who it was, or whoever it was. But they had their schedule. I seen Crossville's got their schedule. Albertville's got their schedule. I mean, so a large number of teams that has been waiting to see what the classifications were, where they're going to be, and what region has already got their schedules made.
Well, I want to ask you about something. Of course, it's time. Let's have if you've got something you want to add. But I was
actually just got a question real quick.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker may not want to talk about it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does he mind speaking about two bills not yet filed? AHSAA claims they are private organizations, so one bill removes them from the state benefits, RSA. The other bill reclassifies without ELL. Mr. Speaker, I hope you know what all that means, because I don't have a clue.
Yeah, I mean, those bills have been filed. The one for the EL students last year actually passed through the House and didn't get through the Senate. They'll probably have some conversation. I think taking them out of RSA is just a shot across the bow. I don't think that's probably going to happen. The thing we got to be mindful of in RSA, the more people we take out, the harder it is to get our percentages up where it's supposed to be. We should be at 80%. We're at 68 or 66. So, yeah, I think that was probably a shot over the bow, just simply because what we talked about earlier. People, it's almost like they've been in a golden dome and they won't listen to anybody. So, including the legislative body. So I think that one was just probably we can do this if we want to kind of thing. Because there has been comments, not by Heath Harmon. I hadn't heard him anyway, that they said that we ain't got anything to do with them. we have nothing to do with them. And so we need to stay out of their business, which I don't disagree with half of that, but we do have something to do with them because we pay for everything that they do, basically, by providing, equipment and fields and lights and facilities for them to play on. So the RSA retirement's just part of it.
Yeah, because I have heard it often at times that, schools that, can't afford to put cloth on their kids, the state has to step in and fund that because they just can't simply, you don't want to do away with their football team just because they can't, fund cloth. So the state has to come in often and help those schools that struggle financially.
Yeah. Well, that's, regardless if it's football or basketball or softball or whatever it is, that's one thing. We get grant money every year and always put it, the most of it, to athletics and FFA. And the reason I do that is just simply because what you said, Phil, we don't have a line item for cloth, so those teams need a little bit of help, and we don't get enough money to buy uniforms or anything like that, but we get enough to help them buy some. And so I think it's important that we all, and they all continuously every year have fundraisers. That's one thing our grandkids, of course, they know if they call me, I'm going to buy it. So usually they just bring it over with my name already wrote down. And I guess it was last year they had a thing where they give away shotguns and guns. Only that would happen in Alabama probably. But so I finally, after about 10 years of doing that, I won a game, and I figured up I probably had, I don't know, $7,000 or $10,000 in the gun. It was probably $500. So but that's okay. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But I think that's not just me. That's the way it is across all of rural Alabama. It's amazing to me how much the community actually puts into these schools and what they do for them. And if they need something, to make sure they have. We probably live in the best place in the state. And because just like at Valley Head or Plainview or Sylvania, Fife, Crossville, Ider, I mean, if you need something and the kids need it for their team or whatever, those communities are going to make sure they got it. I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but athletics is the lifeblood of a lot of these communities. If it wasn't for athletics, a lot of these communities would die. So, that's the great thing about having athletics, because basically that little old school keeps the town alive. So, so we need that. We need community to support our kids, and they do. They do a great job. Well, Speaker, you've got re-election time. It's just gotten started. When is the election? And I know you've kind of kicked off this, and hopefully you'll win re-election. But tell us about, you've qualified once again, but tell us about what you have to go through and then in the process to where you'll be re-elected again as in the House.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we start, we got from the last year of May the 19th, we could start raising money. So that's kind of what you go through. You go through raising money and trying to make sure you got enough money to run a campaign. And so we did that. Of course, we've been blessed as speaker. It certainly helps raising money. And so anyway, the qualifying was over. So you got 3 weeks to qualify. And it was over with Friday was the deadline at 5:00. And so, we raised the money for a year and almost a year, and then we can raise it all the way to the 19th, and then qualifying starts sometime in January, whatever it was. It was 3 weeks, ended Friday. We were lucky. We didn't have anybody run against us. So, we didn't have a Republican or a Democrat. So we're blessed to not have to go through a campaign. We've been through a few of those, but, we've been really blessed and live in a great community. And, I couldn't be prouder of where I'm from. I'll just tell you. And we there you go. I like it. See there it is. Ledbetter football right there. Yeah. I told him after that was over with, Howie, I told him, I said, we ain't throwing that football no more. I said, we got to throw out frisbees or something, because these kids up here at Henniger, they're going to be linemen. They're not many receivers up there. They're going to bow it up and go 4 yards in a cloud of dust, I guarantee you. But, I think we take for granted. I'm going to be real serious about this for just a minute. I think we take for granted where we're from because we're used to being here. We're used to what we got. We're used to how these communities support these kids. It's not like that everywhere. We live in a special place. We really do. And I get it. I travel all over the state. I mean, I'm from one end of the state to the other continuously. And to see what we've got here and how the community supports it, and I'm just really proud to be from uh, North Alabama. And of course, we got a great state. I'm not saying that, but it's like I tell everybody when I go speak. They ask me where I'm from. I tell them I'm from God's country, and I believe that. I told somebody the other day I was in a meeting in Birmingham. Spoke. There's probably 300 grocers associations. Spoke to them, and I told them I was from Rainsville, Alabama, and I could tell when I told them that they didn't nobody know where Rainsville was. There's about 3 people raised their hand, 2 of them put it back down because they wasn't real sure. And I told them, I said, don't worry if you don't know where Rainsville's at. There's people in Rainsville that don't know where Birmingham's at, so we're even.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. I understand that. Well, I guess it's a relief that you can, concentrate on what it is you've been doing. What are some of the things in the future, especially for Northeast Alabama? Is there plans for the future? I don't know, industry wise. Are there some projects going on? I know constantly there's bills being passed and money being put around where, rebuild Alabama, especially with our roads and whatnot. Are there any projects in the future that will benefit our area?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see a tremendous growth in Huntsville. I mean, Madison County is going to bleed over into Jackson County eventually. They just, I think, annexed 600 acres just in the backside of Gurley. And in talking to the Eli Lilly people that recruited them and our economic development people, we got what's called AGA board, and I serve on it. And meeting with those people and talking to them, I think Eli Lilly coming to Huntsville is what Mercedes did to the automotive industry. Alabama now exports more cars than any other state in the country. And I do think that the medical industry will see, at least from what I'm being told, at least 5 other companies follow Eli Lilly. The investment in Madison County is over $6 billion, the largest corporate investment ever in our state. We are in the process of, I was in Mobile a few months ago and was down there when they cut the ribbon for the new submarine building facility there in Austin. And of course, Airbus is just down the road where they build more commercial airlines than anywhere else in the country. I mean, Alabama's just growing at a pace I didn't think I'd ever see. So I do think there's opportunities for kids in our area, and it's going to get better. And we worked, this will be the second year. We started last year working on career tech. In Alabama, there's only about 34% of our kids graduate college. And so that means, there's 66% of them that don't. And we changed it 2 years ago. We got a career pathway where we dropped the math and the science and they could go learn a trade. The only problem with that is we didn't have about 80 trade schools for 139 school systems. So last year we took as speaker, my staff, we worked on it and took $100 million out of the ETF and put it to expand and to build career tech facilities. And this year we'll do another $150 million. So we'll be, in the last 2 years, we've been putting $250 million in career tech facilities to give the kids opportunity. Last week I had over 40 different industries come and meet with me and tell me what they needed. What do you need? I mean, we're guessing. If we keep doing the same thing we've always done, we're going to get the same results we've always got. And some of it's soft skills. Some of it's just safety programs. And, you can get as deep as you want to get. But some of it wasn't real deep. And I was really shocked. And when all of the industries, all 40 of them said, hey, man, if you'd teach these kids how to do safety, how safety works, it'd be great for us. And I'm thinking, I ain't even thought about that. We hadn't thought about that. So that's why we brought them in. So we'll see a big push for that this year. We got 3 or 4 bills we'll pass with that. So I'm kind of excited. Of course, DeKalb County was blessed. We're going to be getting a new career tech facility. We got about 600 kids. I think now we could have 1,200. We can't fill the need. So excited that the board has taken a step to construct the youth career tech facility.
Well, and just to tell you that, how it been. Sorry, I know Texaco in Rainsville in the DeKalb County system, they're fixing to expand. I know, and my wife has benefited from that because she's taken on a part-time job where they're doing medical training at the high school level now, rather than having to do that when you get to the college level. So, that has expanded. That's growing, and it's going to even grow more from where I understand. And these tech programs, and this is beneficial at Northeast College, where you're teaching kids how to drive a truck, how to do drywall, how to be an electrician, more into the medical field. So this is expanded, and that's the kind of jobs that we need filled, not only in this state but countrywide. That's where the shortcomings are coming in. Of course, that in teachers also, but trade is something that has become a lost art.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the guy on Dirty Jobs. He says that kids today are spending money they don't have on degrees that no longer exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some truth to that. I mean, if you are able to get a certified plumber or a certified electrician here in DeKalb County, you probably can make more money than you can being a lawyer. If you don't believe me, go try to get one. So I do think that it's different now probably than it used to be. And, we had the mindset for all those years, everybody that those kids go to school with got college degrees. And we got to have the college degrees. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is 66% of them's not doing it. And so we've got to do a better job to fill those needs so we can give them the opportunity to be successful in a career that they choose.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's like with me. I have a communications degree, but I make way more money selling potato chips. That's kind of that it really shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't. Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. I had talked to a friend of mine the other day, said his son just got a political science degree. And I asked him, I said, so what's he going to do? He said, I don't know. I said, has he got any plans? He said, yeah, he's going to go. He ain't got a job, so he's going to go back and get his master's degree in political science. I said, okay, all right, we'll see. How that one works. But, we work with Huntsville Hospital. Of course, Jeff Sams was a good friend of mine, the CEO, and I was able to work with him on them purchasing the DeKalb Hospital. And one of the things that we talked about was the need in nursing that you talked about, Phil. And so we were able to put some money at Northeast to start 2-year career path in nursing. And PTs, you can't get in a PT class. So we probably I think some of the things they're doing at Northeast will be more of a respiratory therapist. But I think filling those needs is very, very important, because that's something that's always going to be here. AI is not going to take over the nurse and some of the work that she does or he does.
Yeah, because techs and all that stuff. Because my wife is a registered nurse, and she works for Huntsville Hospital, but it's in Fort Payne. So yeah, it's a big career. And even just being techs, walking with some experience is going to get you a job naturally. And if you go through Texaco, you're going to have that. They'll probably find you a job. You won't have to search. You won't have to search. Well, I want to ask you about a couple of things, and I'll let Howie take over. But this year we got basketball season. Plainview girls and boys won the county, both very impressive this year. And then on the Jackson County side, sections boys won it. North Sand Mountain girls won it. We've got some great basketball programs around here. Iders girls, Pisgah's girls. I mean, sections boys, and we talked about Plainview. There's some very good quality basketball around here. We talk a lot about football, but basketball has really become a great sport for Northeast Alabama. And one of the greatest things I thought that ever happened, and this was part of the association, was them putting in the regional tournaments and the state tournament. I think that really brought basketball to a higher level.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the excitement you see if you go to Birmingham. I went down there last year and watched the boys and the girls in the finals and watched a lot of games. But it's a fever pitch. Everybody's cheering for their team, and it's exciting. I mean, look at what Ider's done in girls over the last few years. Plainview played for girls last year. Plainview's boys was in the final. Coach Plainview's been successful in basketball. Of course, from what I understand from Section, I think Section has got a really good shot of winning state championship in boys basketball. And They tell me they may be the most talented team in this area. I know they maybe lost in the Sand Mountain tournament, but from what when I played, Phil, we played for the state championship 2 years in a row, back to back in basketball, and we never won the Sand Mountain tournament. I mean, so that ought to tell you something. We got beat 1 year 2 points by R.C. Hatch and 6 points by East Limestone, which you don't never forget those losses. But we never won the Sand Mountain tournament. So I think that tournament, regardless of how you come out in it, that certainly doesn't set the pace for what you're going to do in the region. And I'm excited. I think we got several teams around us here, and Section being one of them, that will have make a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, but all due respect, Mr. Speaker, back in the day when you played basketball, it was peach baskets. They had to get a ladder and climb up there and take it out.
Yeah. How did they play half court, Howie?
Yes, sir, they did.
We shot free throws between our legs. Yeah.
But hey, 2 other teams I wanted to mention that are very good. Fort Payne's girls have had a banner year, and Scottsboro's girls are as good or better than they were last year. So, even at the bigger school level around our area, there is some great basketball.
Well, Scottsboro's been on fire in basketball. Yeah. I mean, last year, they had to run with the boys. Of course, Jason Bell is from here in Rainsville. But, man, they've had some great girls and boys basketball. I mean, it's been really exciting to watch everybody in this region. It's been really good. And Fort Payne, like I said, Fort Payne is doing very well. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a couple of state championships come from this area. It's going to be interesting to see after this year. There's some of those teams like for Section, especially. I mean, you look, it seems like there's more private schools 4A down probably, and those are the ones that we may see not make it through to win a state championship. If it's a year away, maybe that's a different case. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want one other question. I'll turn you over to Howie. I'm wondering, and there's been kind of sort of behind the scenes talk that we may see, especially since we've had this thing condensed down and a lot more of your areas are more local, is we might start seeing region play in basketball, girls basketball, softball, and baseball rather than area play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's possible. Yeah, and I like the ideal in baseball, especially. We've kind of always been on the cusp in baseball. A lot of teams around here, and of course, I think we've got some coaches that's done a really good job, and so it's going to kind of be interesting if that transition to that, how that affects it. And I really think for us here, we're fixing to see a whole new way that things work out and the way that these kids are able to participate. It's like I told somebody the other day, guys, it's like you feel. You played on a state championship team. I played for 2 state championships. I'm in my 60s. We still talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you not want to give those kids the same experience that you and I've had? To be able to talk about it for a lifetime. And I guess you're just like me. When I get together with my friends, we were the first 10-0 football team and first one to win a state game, a playoff game, and first team to play back-to-back in the state championship in basketball. And I can tell you every time that my friends are together that we haven't seen in a while, I promise you that's going to come up. We're going to talk about somebody missing a block, or somebody should have had that coverage, or, you remember this or you remember that. So why would we not give these kids the same opportunity?
Yeah. I understand, and that's the thing is what I feel blessed that I got to play on a state championship team, just a small part of it, but still getting to play is, in everything that I have done, it kind of sort of masks that or makes that come to light because when I, like on school board, when we're talking about playoffs, I've been there, I've done that. So, I like to share stories, about, because I know what these kids and coaches are going through. I've been right there. And I do wish every kid could feel what it's like to win a state championship. Every kid deserves that as hard as they work. Yeah, most teams' season ends in disappointment, but it's those relationships and those stories like you that you're talking about that makes playing this game special. Any sport, it don't matter what it is.
I think if you look through a span of a lifetime, you think about, we're talking about high school sports, and it means a lot to people around here. I was blessed. I played on some very good teams. We had a lot of success, but we never won state championship. We played for two, got beat by one, 2 points in one, and actually made what I thought the basket was good. I still believe it was. See, but to be able to experience that, I mean, if we would have won one of those championships, Phil, I never would have took the ring off. I never would have. I just think I would have wore it forever. Have you got yours on, by the way?
No, that's what I tell everybody. It sits over here in a drawer. Because really, it's great to talk about, but it's not part of who I am. So I mean, it's great to have, but what was important to me was the friendships and relationships I made. That, and it builds character. And that was the most important thing.
Yeah, but I bet you could tell me a memory though. I mean, I can, if I'm, I remember. I guess the thing that I remember the most is back then, all the state championship in basketball was played in Coleman Coliseum. And I'll never forget when we played the first time we played in the finals. We come out on the court, and as big as the Coliseum was, it was almost full. And I think, holy cow! I mean, this is nothing like I'd ever seen before. Of course, we wasn't used to shooting the ball where there wasn't a wall behind it.
Yeah.
So the depth perception was something we had to get used to. And going down and watching Alabama practice, of course, it was Leon Douglas and some of those guys, but going down and watching them practice and they're just wiring the rim off the backboard. I'm thinking, holy cow, we can't play basketball. These guys can have a game.
Yeah, that's what made, of course, that's like I played. It was at little old Valley Head Stadium in between the hedges, and there was about 3,500 people there. And I don't know how they crammed that many in there. I don't see how they did, but that's just what they estimated was there. But that was unreal.
Well, Phil, there was 3,500 people there, but how many was standing on the train tracks watching too?
Well, they were, and that was back when they built fires in the barrels, and everybody was standing by fires. You can't do that now, but it was cold. Yeah, I'm sure they stood. But it was a great experience. But there's a fellow I know, Tim Wilkes. He and I talk a lot because we work together. He tells me a few stories about you. Tell us the story. How did you get the name Banjo?
That's a long story.
That's all I was going to say, Phil. Long story.
Long story. It's a long story.
Long story.
The thing, this is kind of it's funny, to be honest with you. So me and Coach Tubble's a friend of mine. I helped him in his campaign. He stayed here when he was running for Senate. He stayed with me in the pool house quite a bit. And all my friends would come over. We'd come over and we'd have cookouts and stuff like that. And they all call me Banjo. And so he starts calling me that. Of course, now he's running for governor. I was in a meeting with him the other night, and I wasn't really listening to what he was saying at the time. But he called me out. Instead of speaker, he said, and Banjo, because that's what he's used to calling me. And everybody just looked because they didn't know who he was talking about. And so I suspect after he gets elected, they'll know. But yeah, it's one of those old. My dad started it. There was a guy old. When I was growing up, if somebody lived around you or you knew, their name was Uncle. And there's an old man across the road from us. His name was Uncle Joe Jackson. And he used to play the banjo. And man, I would beg my daddy to carry me over and hear Uncle Joe play the banjo. I mean, that's just a little bitty thing. And then when we got old enough to play Little League Baseball, he'd call me, always call me Banger. He didn't call me Banjo. He called me Banger. And I had a friend of mine, his dad heard him say that. He changed it to Banjo, and he'd say, break a string, Banjo. So every now and then I'd hit one out, and he'd say, Banjo broke a string. And then so it started when I was just, little. And I've had it all my life, but that's it. I mean, that's how it developed. But I dare say there's probably some people in this area don't know what my name is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. Of course, and probably they don't really want to ask you why you're called Banjo either. I'm sure there's some people,
Yeah,
that's
most
kind
of
of
the
like,
time.
Ace Austin that plays basketball at Alabama. I dug around and found out what her real name was, and when she was on her podcast, I brought that up, and you were seeing the look on her face. She goes, "I don't like that name. The only reason I don't change my name legally is what my grandmother calls me." But
Yeah.
she goes by Ace, and I can't even remember what her real name was. But when I brought that up, it kind of sort of floored her. And so, and people probably don't know why you're called Banjo.
No, most times if they ask, I tell them just like I told y'all, it's a long story, and that's usually what it is. Y'all got the full version tonight, so
Yeah. Well, that's
I
good. Well,
told
Howie,
somebody,
I hope we've covered most everything that I wanted to ask, and I hope we've answered a lot of people's questions and kind of put some things to rest around us, because there's been a lot of frustration. A lot of people have had to vent. They maybe don't understand, but that's why we have stuff like this, is to help people understand more, about what's going on behind the scenes. Because the biggest thing we want to be, and it don't matter if it's legislative, Alabama High School Athletic Association, media, you want to be transparent and you want to answer questions as truthful as you can.
yeah, that's true. That's exactly right, and I think y'all done a good job of that, and I appreciate the opportunity.
we appreciate you coming on. And I told somebody the other day, I said, yeah, we're fixing to have Speaker Ledbetter on. And they're like, I bet you won't call him Banjo. I said, I bet you I will too. So,
Yeah, there you go.
you know,
There you go.
But anyway, one more political thing, real quick, if you don't mind. Paige Darwin says, please support the sports fiscal bill where MPs can sign off on school sports fiscals and not just doctors. The MP sit in athlete most of the time, not the actual doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's a bill that maybe
It is. Yeah,
coming
it
through.
is. I've got it on my phone actually. I got the guys here to come and talk to me about it. I think it's something we probably. I don't know how that will go, but it's something we certainly are going to look at.
That's cool. We appreciate your time because
Yeah, absolutely.
you talking to us and everything. It's like, yeah, we got I had a meeting with all these people and this and that, and then all of a sudden it's like me and Phil's here. You got time for me and Phil, so we appreciate you coming on and best I wish the best of luck for re-election, but there's
There you go.
no re-election really going on. You're just
Yeah.
kind of sliding right in
We
automatically.
got lucky. We got lucky, but I appreciate it. I like the advertising too, by the way, Howie. I think that's cool. I'm gonna,
I
next, time,
was
next time I come on, I'm gonna see if Phil has anything.
I was one of those.
You'll
I
have to
was one
send
of
me
those.
something.
I was
Yeah.
one of those linemen at the Henniger Potato Festival that dropped the ball, but I was able to knock that little 4-year-old away
Hey,
to get the actual ball. So,
well, the problem with Howie is he tried to dribble it.
Yeah, I got you.
yeah.
I'm gonna make sure next time I come on, I'm gonna send y'all something. I'm gonna give it to Tim so he can get it to you, Phil.
All right, that sounds good. Sounds
good. Well, guys, we appreciate it. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
No, we appreciate you coming on, answering the questions that everybody had, and Mr. Speaker, we can't let you go without actually giving some shout outs because we always let everybody give shout outs. So anybody you'd like to give a shout out to, and even if it's Mr. Tuberville for breaking the name of Banjo out, and all your fellow colleagues down there in Montgomery's wondering who's he talking about.
Yeah. No, I like I said earlier, we're just blessed living there. We live in, certainly my wife puts up with a lot of stuff. Tim's sister, because she kind of keeps everything going while I'm gone sometimes, and sometimes she gets to travel with me, which is nice. But I think the people we grew up with and friends we've had all our life and our family. I mean, we should always be respectful and tell them how much we love them every day. And don't do it enough, but I make sure that they know it because I tell them. So anyway, I guess that would be it.
Awesome. Great deal. Like I said, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and talking about the reclassification, the SB 73. I want to call it Super Bowl 73. I don't know why, but I guess anytime you have a SB in front of something, being football minded like I am, it's always Super Bowl for some reason. But talking about the SB 73 and everything else that's taking place, and we appreciate your time. And I'm sure that we're going to see you probably at Jacksonville and Birmingham because it looks like Plainview's kind of on the steamrolling course to make it to both places. And but
Well,
are you able to get out and see very many basketball games?
not as many as I'd like. I mean, our traveling time doesn't allow as much, and we're in session now, so I've got to be in Montgomery in the morning at 9 o'clock. So I'm leaving here at the house in the morning about 6. I got a speaking engagement in Montgomery in the morning at 9. So I don't get the opportunity like I would like, but you know, my grandkids don't play basketball either. So that, you know, they play baseball and football, but that's it. But yeah, I try not to miss any of the football games and try to be as many as I can with baseball, but I won't be able to make all of them. And that's my biggest, you know, disappointment in doing this job is when I can't be here when they got something going on. And that hardly ever happens, but during the week in baseball, especially when we're in session, it makes it a little tougher.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is about basketball, it's controlled environment, and I like that. You know, in studio doing scoreboards many years, I don't like the weather very much anymore. So basketball is great for me because it's a controlled environment, and that's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
I know you probably know this gentleman. We call him the Eider Insider, Tyler Dalton. He says something about a TVA bodyguard.
He's it. He is my TVA bodyguard. He's the man. For sure.
So, Mr. Ledbetter, I have a safe trip tomorrow. You know, I would say if we can do anything for you, but you do everything for us, and we appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to it. And like I said, maybe we'll catch you at a game at Jacksonville and Birmingham and all that good stuff. So good luck on your travels tomorrow. So for
Thank
Phil
you.
Harris, I'm the Howard Chaney, and our special guest tonight was Speaker of the House, Nathaniel Ledbetter. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. So
Thank y'all.
good night, everybody, and stay warm if you can for the next